So difficult to even hold a meeting like the one you saw in the Kenya National Human Rights Commission.
It was not held either way.
It was because you would even meet in a matatu.
Yeah.
You discuss, mukifika thika, kila mtu anatoka kwenda zake when the meeting is done inside the matatu.
Yeah.
So it was not the political repression at that time was too much for them. It was harder than even now.
Yeah.
At least now we can express ourselves freely and you go back safely.
Yeah.
Those days you cannot come here and challenge the president or the government and you go back home, you leave this apart the premise and go and get home safely.
Yeah.
Because you could not know your fate waits you at what point. And therefore the political freedom and the freedom that our parents fought for is actually what we are enjoying today.
Yeah.
And commemorating Saba Saba is a reminder on how delicate democracy is and how closely we are supposed to guard it.
Yeah.
Because if without those freedom, many things could not really happen.
Yeah.
And therefore Saba Saba reminds us that we need to still protect our democracy and we should also continue to do political participation. And therefore my position has always been that the best commemoration for Saba Saba, especially for young people today, is joining the political participation.
Yeah.
They join political parties and make changes from there because we are a political democracy. Of course we have independent offices. Sometimes somebody wants to run for office as an independent person. I have always never supported independent candidature because independent candidature, once you become an MP and you want to misbehave, there is no party through the legal process that can reprimand you. So you are a lone ranger. You are alone and nobody can tell you anything. And that independence I've never supported because of that essence. And therefore, in my opinion, and my advice has always been to the young people, that they should be able to join political parties. You cannot make meaningful change in the streets alone. Sometimes some of you need to get inside and participate from inside. Then you understand how government is run. And even the agitation that is currently going on across the country, strong in certain areas, is that there is governance. There's lack of governance knowledge. People don't understand how government works, right? And it is the biggest problem because we are in a generation where people are not patient. This is a generation that wants things to be done quick. Unfortunately, in the government, you can't do things like that. They have to be followed. You have to follow the regulations. You have to follow the laws, and it goes over time, a period of time. That impatience is what is bringing in a letter all this noise and all over the demonstrations. And therefore, sometimes it is important that as we commemorate Saba Saba, I was expecting that one of the message that should be at the top is that young people must be urged to join political parties and front their candidates who are going to bring changes. For example, it's going to be not meaningful struggle and the death that we have lost. If at the end of the day, both millennials and Gen Zs, we go to election, they have no candidates, they have no structure, they have no, they are just, we can only make noise. The death of young people who struggle for most of these things that we are claiming that we are fighting for shall have gone in vain. If we will not have candidates, if we will not be able to front ourselves to run for office. And therefore, to make this thing meaningful, I'm still urging young people to join political parties and vie for seats and front their candidates also. That is when the struggle will be real, because now we will have some of our people inside there. We can be able to give them pressure and they act on the things that we want from them. But without it, it's a matter, it's vanity completely.
A question. Yes. You've said that the young of this current generation, we do not know how government works. In a snapshot, without making it too long, paint a picture for us. How does government work?
Government work through laws and regulations, okay, and processes and procedures, okay. You would want to do something, for example, you want to construct a road that is passing next to this place. Do you know how many agencies that the approval it will have to go through until the time that construction is done? Not even construction, all the way from processes, approvals, that can include a lot of agencies. Then you go to procurement, procurement, sometimes mtu ameenda kotini, the matter takes around another year on a road that was supposed to be done within a few months. And you realize that not inefficiency, but the bureaucracy in government, it's called bureaucracy. The bureaucracy in the government does not allow anybody to just say something on a snap and it is done. And that is why sometimes when in the week I heard people saying that the president is going to use taxpayers' money to construct a church. Now that's not a very knowledgeable statement, because that money that is allocated for the church, 1.2 billion is not a small amount of money. Assuming that it was going to be the one that be used to construct the church, it has to go through parliament. It has to go through public participation, go through parliament, go through certain approvals, and it must be put inside there. Auditor General to look at it, control of budget has to approve it for the money to be released for that matter. And there is nowhere in the laws there where it says that government has a religion. We do not have a, we are not a religious state per se. So every religion is allowed to stay there. If ingekuwa that way, that we are going to use our taxpayers' money, it could have followed the correct procedure. And I know somebody could have gone to court and say that this money here is going to work on this thing, it is unconstitutional. And I'm very sure the court could have declared it unconstitutional, because we do not have a state religion. And therefore, it was not a knowledgeable statement when somebody says that the government is going to use 1.2 billion to construct a church. It is not a knowledgeable statement. That is when we don't know how government works. All right? I don't want to defend whether the church will be built or not, but I'm looking at that administratively. You can't do that. You will be in problems. Yes.
But you see, I gave you an opportunity to explain what the young do not understand in how governance, in how government works. But then you drew me to an issue that I don't really think we ought to even have a conversation about it. Not from the sense of it's not important, but we know that this might be a political gimmick to create a conversation that we really shouldn't be having in the country currently. And agreed, there is no problem for a church to be built, but where are you building that church? All right? That is, and when you say that the court would have, because the language and tone that you are using is sounding as if that the president has the right because if you strip the presidency off of him, he does not have a right to build the church in State House. He is only building the church at State House because of the presidency that he has onto him. And the questions people have been asking are very simple. If we get an Abdel Kadir as president, is he also going to build a mosque at State House? If we get, listen, if we get a Singh, Manu Chandaria as president, and these all are examples, are they also going to build their own temples at State House? The issue is not about building a place of worship at State House. That should not even be made, it shouldn't even be made an issue. The issue here is, what right do they have to put that structure over there? All right? And that is a question that I want you to ponder about, because for me, I believe it is a non-issue.
True.
All right? It is a non-issue. But also, the question is, with all, and this is the miscommunication and the detachment that people are constantly telling the president. The priority right now is it's sinking 1.2 billion Kenyan shillings in a church where you have over 50,000 young Kenyans who did their exams last year. They said, we cannot afford going to higher education institutions, we will not go through CUSPs. That is the employment, or that is the future forced labor that labor force that we are losing. This effect of 50 young people who have not gone to university, we are going to feel it 2 years, 3 years from now, or 4 years from now, the time that they would have spent in university. But then we have a president who believes that building a church is what is most important currently. To me, I just don't understand. Back to the conversation that we are having of young people not understanding government, how it works. I am checking a book out here. It is written by Robin Sharma, and it is called A Leader without a title. And I've seen this come out from the young of this country, that necessarily you do not need a title for you to be a leader. All right, the capacity that you have, the opportunities that you have. Oyola, right now, however you're doing it, you are being a leader in your own right. However I'm doing what I'm doing right here, I am being a leader in my own right. Even though the political participation in our country has been dimmed down for you to be a part of a political party, and that I do not disagree, but that does not mean that the people we have currently, they should not dispense governance that is reputable and that is reasonable and that is welcoming and that is inclusive. And that is what the young people are like, okay, for us, we do not like to be a part of political parties. But even as we do not like to be a part of political parties, can you do what is right by the country? Mr. Oyola, is that hard to ask of?
It is hard to ask because it will not happen. I will tell you practically, right?
But then, okay, it is hard to happen.
Yes.
The people who hold the political
Those
power
who have
like
won,
this,
I believe they have.
what interest do they have?
Is
there interest to Kenya? Let us not even talk about the young people.
Good question.
Is there interest to Kenya? Because we had Professor in the morning, and he said, this morning I'm not going to politicize anything. And he's going to, and he said that the question is very simple. Whatever the president is doing right now, whatever the Inspector General of Police is doing right now, whatever DCI Amen is doing right now, whatever young Kenyan is doing right now, who is planning to go either to demonstrate or not to demonstrate, whatever Oyola you are saying right now, is it to the interest of Kenya?
It depends on where somebody stands. So the answer might come from both.
And when you bring in depending,
yes,
then your interest is not to Kenya.
No.
Because when your interest is first to Kenya,
what is this thing called interest for Kenya?
Doing what is right.
Like,
putting your country first.
They've always put our country first.
So everything that they are doing
not
currently,
everything. Just like a house, there is no perfect family.
Yes.
There are challenges every house has.
Oyola, where is this perfection coming
you
from?
See, that is why we have institutions that keep on checking so that our mistakes we correct, we improve, we progress with it. If everything was perfect,
yes,
for example, we could not need IPOA for what? But because we recognize there could be some excesses,
yes,
in the certain members of our civil service, then IPOA comes there to check on the excesses of the police. If there was that we were perfect, we don't even have to have an IBC. For what? We could just say, we all trust each other. I think Alan can just continue be president like that. But we have these institutions because, number one, we recognize that we are not perfect people.
Yes.
And human beings, as they always describe it, we have an insatiable appetite to always want to grab things, right? If you bring two sweets here, one smaller, one bigger, you give a 1-year-old, definitely they'll pick a bigger one. I mean, we are selfish inherently. And we must recognize that that exists. And therefore, the interest for Kenya, it depends on where somebody stands. Because number one, I don't know who employs you, for example. I don't know what you're doing it for what. But because of our selfishness, that is why we have institutions to watch over us, to put us to order.
So Oyola, and I agree with the institutions that they need to be in place. But then the general conclusion is that even as we're doing what we are doing, we are not putting the interest of our country first. We are putting our interest first.
In politics, they always say that you first of all satisfy your selfish interest first, then the selfishness of people closer to you.
So you are agreeing with me that to some extent, the leaders we have currently, they are not putting the interests of Kenyan first. They are putting their personal interests first.
Not even the currently. Since the beginning of government,
no, we don't go,
into the future.
You see, Oyola, and I want you, and this is a lesson that I want to teach you on live television, all right? And this is not meant to disrespect you. History is important.
Yes.
But for us to change history, we must be able to change the present. So if we are going to justify the present based off of history, we are not going to galvanize the future and build a future of a better future. So desist from having an argument that because it has happened in the past, then we must have it in the present. I understand what has happened in the past depicts and shapes what is happening in the present. But for us to change the future, we must, because the amount of knowledge, and you and I agree, the amount of knowledge that our four grandfathers had then, if they came from the grave and they saw that we are still relying on the then to deal with the problems of the now, we are not going to continue having a country.
That one I agree. In political economy, there are certain theories that we always put forward when explaining, especially political institutions, nation state, all those different places. Yeah, there is one called realism theory. That is when military actually it's use of force. For example, we refer to the West, especially US. When they want something, they go straight to either military or soft power through economic, they use it by tokenism to make sure that they put their national interests kwanza mbele. Then we have idealism theory. It is where how things are supposed to be. Okay, in a perfect world, how are we supposed to live? This should run like this. This should run like that. Okay, and that is another theory. For me, because I've gone through those theories and I know how state works, because that is my area of profession, I will tell you some of these things are easier said. But even if as we are given those seats, we'll find that we can really do very little.
A wrong argument as well.
You see, it is easier to say it when you're outside.
So
that's why I was insisting that we must get inside.
Because we cannot be able to do it. Because
we must get inside.
And your argument has been as well, Oyola, that even if, because you have said we have an insatiable appetite. Because also when we get into those places, we will also behave the way
and that's why they are change.
And my argument, or what most Kenyans, I don't know about the Kenyan who is watching, but me as a Kenyan here, what I'm saying, the people who are in power currently, what can they be able to do to make sure that we have a country that is running per how things would be considered smooth? All right? Nobody is saying that it is going to be all merry every single time. There are hard rules and there are hard decisions that need to be made, but can we have the interests of those that we lead at heart? Because you're leading Kenya on whose behalf? And that is the argument that every young person, that every other Kenyan. Now, demonstrations today have been, the celebrations today might not happen, or the demonstrations, however you'd want to term them, but you watched what happened on Saturday. Soft rebellion, people participating in the Nairobi Marathon, but the chant was still ongoing. Now, what if Kenyans resolve to not advertising that we're going to go to demonstrations, and you start to see that smooth rebellion, then what is the government going to do?
For me, I love it. At least it makes leaders to be in check. The only question we need to ask ourselves, are we strategic with those words? Because it is a sloganism has been there.
You see, Oyola, when the power for you to showcase, for you to agitate has been taken away from you, then that soft rebellion is what left of you. But that soft rebellion can even turn into bigger movements that actually it is the government of the day that is losing, or that would lose. Because eventually the masses would stand up and say that enough is enough. And if then the government chooses to make more pressure or more violence or more pressure, as we are seeing this morning, this is basically pressure because people are not able to go on with their daily business. So eventually, there is somebody who is going to lose. Can't we just put an end to all of this and say, tumesikia, and this is what we're going to do for us to be able to tackle the things that you are talking about?
There's just one place, something that I don't understand about all this that is going on here. Because we have all been seeing the president acknowledging the complaints, not complaint, but this agitation, and he has been responding to them, to some of them. What is this one thing that somebody has been asking the president to do and is not done, for example? Like, for example, you woken up in the morning. Alan, they will say one thing that you think President Ruto has not done, for example. Because, you see, Alan, and I like giving history because that's when we draw lessons from. When Kibaki got into power through popular vote in 2002, where he won with a lot of margin, right? It was a very popular president, very popular. By 2005, he lost a referendum because it was easy as opposition to always draw parallels and put a lot of pressure. But when you assume power, realize the state functions differently. He lost 205 referendum because he became too unpopular. We ended up again almost losing his second term in 2007 when President Uhuru took over power. For the first 5 years, apart from SGR, you can't pinpoint anything that he did because you had to first of all clear the stock of the previous regime, put in your systems, and align your finances.
The previous regime that he was an assistant finance minister.
Yes, but
and,
you see,
these are the issues that Oyola, I always tell you.
No, remember. How many ministers do we have then? 42. There were 42 ministers. It was one of the 42. When you become a minister of finance, you just deal with the treasury. You are not dealing, for example, with security matters. When police wakiwa watu Turkana huko. Now when you're now the president, you're now the overall. You're supposed to get intelligence, mine it, act on it. Then things become different. So he had to take first 5 years doing nothing substantial apart from SGR that he did. Second time is when we saw now, at least now, he was doing something and the country became like a construction site. Roads were being done all over the place. I don't think it is wise on us, even though we want perfect governance, that we can expect a president within 2 years to do everything that we want. Some of these things are in pipeline. They progress over time. When somebody, and that's why I'm always of the opinion that you, even after giving somebody mandate and you feel that is not achieving what you want so quicker, you have another election that is coming, you go and vote him out. The problem I have is that first, 1 year after election, is setting up system for administration yoyote. Final year for to election is campaigning period. So ideally, a president has only 3 years to do anything much that he can do, practically. So for the 2023, the guy puts out the places. Sai budget unaona imesomo sai, he sets aside, because I read that budget, almost 790 billion now for project, because he told us he got the country in debts. Ethiopia defaulted, you know that very well. Many countries, until they downgraded them recently, World Bank but downgraded Ethiopia's rating in terms of credit worthiness, taking loan or whatever it is. So the president told us he took the country when you had even Gachagua said that the treasury was without anything much. You could not do anything with it. So he said, first 2 years, I was trying to meet the obligation, our loan obligations that were so huge, which is understandable. But now is when he said, at least now projects and construction will begin. Remember the first 2 years, there was nothing much that was happening because government employs people directly or indirectly. Directly is when you're being given public service appointments, letter of appointment, you're working either for which department. Indirect is when you give people tenders, money circulates, and the person who gets the tender also employs other people along the chain. That is what Kibaki did. Remember during Kibaki, loans zilikuwa napewa kwa barabara kama inauzwa njugu. Banks were all over the place na manini, because he wanted to spur the economic growth of the country by giving people finances and soft loans to expand their business. And it worked then. So right now, we also have to be practical. So that we are not bitter, we also have to be practical. That they've been explaining this thing all the time. Employment will be done both with the administration that is there and the one that will come. But not everybody will be employed. Unfortunately, you know how public service has been happening over the years. People get this appointment not even through merit. And that has been the biggest problem. Sometimes when you go even to the page of Public Service Commission and you see them advertising positions there, I don't know whether you read the comment and look at the attitude. They say, this is just a formality, these things have already gone. Kama usually they advertise almost 100 and something positions, entry positions, and people still don't believe in the state. Mistrust with the state is historical because we have had employment based on ethnicity, based on family, based on friendship, not merit. And those things have been building over time, and people look at them, right? When the time I was graduating, personally, when I was graduating from University of Nairobi, Zach Kinude, the former CS, was my classmate. He became a CAS in our whole ministry. Sisi hata wakati huo, most of us we left university, we not even gotten anything at all. Okay? So we look at this thing and the way they have been happening. And not that we are not learning, but we somehow, sisi millennial, we accepted our fate. That is how things are.
So you also want the Gen Zs to accept their fate without doing anything?
Now Gen Zs, in fact, it is a millennial that have never struggled for anything much. Because our fathers, Gen X, fought for multi-party. Boomers fought for independence.
Now your younger siblings are fighting for you.
Now my brothers, they have siblings are fighting for me. At least, I hope they will keep the momentum, because my only worry is, with the inflexibility of the state, all right, and lack of quick action over time, it will be agitation like that, because even if Ruto left power today and somebody gets there on acting capacity, for example, which is not in the constitution, okay, within a month or two, he will be must go again. Yeah. That is what happened in Sri Lanka. Yes?
You are right, but I want us to come closer to the end of the conversation. But what I'm picking from this whole conversation on all those parallels that you have drawn.
Yes.
Kenya, we haven't figured out the issue of continuity of government.
Yeah, kabisa.
As a country, we aren't building towards something, because we've heard about Singapore, we've heard about the US, the American dream, we've heard about every country having its own dream. But I think Kenya hasn't really identified its dream. And as we're winding up this conversation, what do you think would be the Kenyan dream from your own perspective and the knowledge that you have? And I hope it is not joining political parties. And how can we work within the current confines that we have to build a common agenda? Because we had Vision 2030, which was started by the then President Mwai Kibaki. Who came in, he brought his Big Four agenda. Now we are here, we have the better economic transformation agenda. How are we going to build a dream for Kenya? And how can we make sure that any leader, if Ruto goes, if he does not go, if Raila comes, if he does not come, if Oyola comes, if he does not come, how are we going to be able to build that pipeline dream that every leader we see on the ballot, this one buys into the Kenyan dream?
You quoted certain countries that I would start with just briefly: Singapore, Malaysia, and all those countries. If you look at those countries, particularly the one we started independence with, they never got where they are through soft decisions, democracy. The rulers there were literally tyrants, but they were dictators, benevolent dictators. Sometimes they would surpass the law, but to make painful decisions for the country. And therefore, Singapore, Malaysia, even America was built through slavery. The same to Europe. Those things, like if you go to Spain, for example, Franco is that guy. He killed so many people to make sure that he built Spain to be where it is today. And therefore, in my opinion, the dream that we have will not come softly. It will work over time. We will have to make sacrifices to make sure that some of these decisions are acted on. But bigger still is that we need some benevolent dictator somehow along the chain line so that we can be able to do certain things. Because you see, this democracy that we have been given, democracy is a Western ideology, Western idea. But democracy works well in countries that have already achieved the economic strength. So the democracy just check the institutions. For a growing small country like ours, where you're supposed to go and drill a water bowl, or even a road, for example. If you go to Ngong Road, next to Galleria, you know that Ukienda Bomas, there's a house there that was built on the road. That road going to Bomas when you're coming from Galleria, Ukienda hivi. Now, the guy went to court, and that section took years to be done. Democracy does not need. In America, there's an act called the Patriot Act. It states that if the state or American government want to build a construction of a road, and one person is affected, they weigh in between that one person and 1,000 people living here. Which one is much greater? 1,000 covers a lot of families. It forms the state. They would rather forcefully remove you there for the road to be done. I don't know whether compensation is there, but that is what they do. Now that one we cannot do in Kenya here. The reason why Uganda left our pipeline to Lamu, is it Lamu or Mombasa, for their oil export, and went through Dar es Salaam, port of Dar es Salaam, is because in Kenya, even getting a land itself is too expensive, because people have misused the state structure and our government policies and laws to make sure that the speculators are the people making money. Brokers are the people making money. Kitambo, if you ask your parents or anybody older than us, our parents, if you are employed with Coca-Cola, for example, by Coca-Cola, for example, you are a true employee with all the benefits. When Kibaki came to power, destroyed the labor market. That now, Coca-Cola or whichever government, or not government, whichever company does not have to employ you directly. They give a broker in between here, as some consultant, to give him the money, then that guy employs you. And you find that through that kind of arrangement, people's labor rights have been violated. People they don't have job security because this consultant can dismiss you and you don't even take Coca-Cola, for example, to court. But Kitambo, they used to employ you, get all the benefits, a house, a medical cover. So when Kibaki came, gave broker, he created a brokerage economy where you don't have to produce anything to make money. And that was the biggest parallel between Kibaki, Moi, Kenyatta, and the Kibaki government. Because Kibaki destroyed institutions where people are supposed to create wealth in terms of manufacturing and production. Then he created a brokerage economy where you just need a certificate of company registration. You take work there. I mean, we just do brokerage.
How does this all factor into that single dream that I asked you about?
It has destroyed that dream because now we have to make quick wealth. The
question, Oyola, was
quick wealth.
How? Let us not dwell in the past.
Because we still don't have any dream.
Let us not dwell in the past, Oyola. You are fashioning yourself as a person who seemingly knows what should happen. What should the Kenyan dream look like? All right? And how should we build towards it? And how should we elect leaders who help us build? For now, we are not going to draw parallels from the past. The problem we are in currently, we have identified we do not have something that we are working towards. All right? And I was very keen and said, Ruto goes, Ruto stays. Raila goes, Raila comes. You become president, you do not become president. What is this agenda? What is this dream? And how should it look like? That is my question to you as we are winding up.
The greatest the greatest value that we need to inculcate into ourselves so that it is translated into government offices. We do not have a
dream is not government officers.
I'm saying it begins with us because if I'm a thief and I become a minister, you will expect nothing different. I will continue to abuse my office. Our value system, seemingly it's getting down, it's getting broken very badly. We compromise these days on values, which is supposed to be the part of the driving force behind our dream and the dreams of our country to get to a point.
What is that dream for a country to get to a point? What do you think that dream should be?
It's a big conversation.
Oh, just paint up in 2 minutes. When Martin Luther King stood up and said, I have a dream. I have a dream that one day a black man will become the president. That is a dream. What do you think should be the dream? And if President William Ruto is watching you right now, what do you think should be the dream that he's working towards?
The dream that should be able to drive us as a country is be in a position or not being in a position. I'm like, us as a country, we reward hard work, okay? That we put it on merit, right? And that simply means that it should become criminal, for example, for our public service or even business to thrive through ethnicity. Like you see, for example, in Tanzania, a lot, almost over many.
Tanzania has nothing to do with our dream.
I'm saying their system as a country.
Do you have a dream for Kenya?
Yes, I do have it.
What is that dream?
The dream is that you are supposed to be rewarded for your hard work, regardless of where you're coming from.
Plainly, that is
plainly like that.
All right.
Because that is what will make young people have an assurance that you really have to work hard because it will pay you.
Yeah.
And that is what we should be able to inculcate in the cultures of our children. That hard work truly pays the way it used to be in primary school when we grew up. And some schools used to have that motto, hard work pays. We have to inculcate that we work hard on whatever you want as a country. Kenya gives you the platform and all the opportunities to be able to be rewarded out of your hard work. Not favoritism, not ethnicity, not financial exclusion and whatever things, but hard work must be able to pay at the end of the day when you get into the borders of our country. And Burundians have been doing it with even Rwandese who are selling tea in town. They realize that
Burundians and Rwandans do not have anything to do with the Kenyan dream.
They realize, I'll give you an example.
Your dream for Kenya, Oyola, as we're winding up, Your dream for Kenya
What's
is
your
hard
dream?
work.
Yeah.
And Oyola's dream partly is for us to have a dictatorship to make sure that things happen in this
Benevolent
country.
dictatorship.
These are your words.
Yes.
And dear Kenyans, I hope I'm not going to sound as if I am announcing the COVID-19 numbers, but dear Kenyans, as Alan Hubbard, I disagree with Oyola that Kenya does not need a benevolent dictator. We do not need a dictatorship. You asked me what is my dream. My dream for Kenya is pretty simple. That, as you've said, that every hard-working Kenyan gets the services that they deserve for the taxes that they do, that they pay. That every Kenyan is able to go to fathers, and that every Kenyan is equal to a particular degree. Probably not in education, probably not in health, but when we come to the law that we all advocated for, we are equal. And I believe that that is a Kenya that I want for me, for me and my children. The Kenya that Oyola wants for him and his children, you've heard it. Yes. And that is where we will put a pin in this conversation. It is highly unethical, but I would also want to hear the dream of our sign language interpreter, and he's going to do it in sign language as we are winding up the conversation this morning. Mr. Maina, what is your dream for Kenya?
My dream for Kenya is a Kenya that all people get justice and the rule of law is followed, and a Kenya where everyone is treated equally, and we see progress, and everything is, an economic empowerment, and our country is thriving economically. That is my dream, Kenya.
All right, you hear that two